Hello and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here. I hope you're safe and well. Obviously, today we're having this webinar from BMIT Technologies, the intelligent automation to boost your customer support productivity. Now, first of all, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank everyone for joining us and also to thank and welcome our guests, John and Dahlia. Now, John is the product director and I would say brains behind the CX virtual agent AI solution. John, how are you doing? I'd like to welcome you on stage.
Hi, Steve. Doing well. Thank you. Thank you for that very generous introduction.
No problem. Well, and of course, and last but of course not least, we have Dahlia, who is the customer support manager for the well-known brand Stanley Bet, specifically for online markets. Dahlia, how's life treating you?
Hi, Stephen. Hi, John. Well, very fun, very well. I'm not complaining.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, just to the audience, just so you're aware, please feel free at any time to note down any questions that you may have. We will adhere to try and answer them at the end, all of them if possible. If not, we'll make sure you are provided with the correct answer. Moving on, where do we start, John, Dahlia? It's been one hell of a roller coaster over the last 2 years, not just for us, but I think for everyone, the industry, the whole world, to be quite frank. And our lives have been turned upside down, inside out. We have no idea what has been going on. However, we haven't stopped. Life's carried on and we've persevered. And I think more importantly, we've all been doing our utmost to move forward. And including myself here, I think it just shows, and it's also allowed people to move forward, find new paths and directions that probably people didn't know even existed. But let's take it a bit away from personal life and let's talk a little bit more about the business and what's been going on. Now, I would like to start with get the audience just a little bit involved and kick it off with just a quick question. So, have any of you out there ever thought about using AI within customer support function? Just fire it out there, yes, no, maybe. Doesn't really matter. It's just to sort of understand what kind of sort of thought processes, especially with the changes that have been going on in the world. I think so far the consensus is looking at not really. It's an idea. Let's see what the future holds. Well, let's talk a little bit about the past before we move into the future. John, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say, well, what you've told me over the last few years, you've sort of been using your techie brain, excuse the phrase, to obviously bring some new solutions to life. And just give us a bit of an idea what you've been up to and what you've been trying to achieve.
Sure, Steve. I mean, first of all, there are cleverer people than me that have come up with this stuff, but it was great. It's great to be involved in it. Basically, we were seeing some interesting developments around AI, especially around understanding of language and of various languages. This is not something pertaining to a specific language. And when we analyzed and we got our business brains together, we started thinking, basically a very strong use case around customer service emerged. And basically what we've ended up with, EBO are committed to try and produce a product that can basically reduce the repetitive chats. And we remove the calls from human agents. That is the key objective that we're trying to do here. And we tie ourselves to that. So it is actually a brand promise, and it's something we're taking through, that we can create a virtual agent that will start by taking over a number of calls, handling them end-to-end successfully, and progressing that virtual agent over time to continue developing and taking over more and more calls as time goes on. We need to do this in a way that actually provides excellent customer service. So we're not looking for a simple chatbot here. We're looking at something that has a personality, can understand what your clients are asking accurately. In fact, our virtual agents, the mature ones, understand way over 90% of what is being asked for them. asked of them, and actually understand the request and provide the appropriate response back. That is what we are trying to do, and we do that in 50% of the times. As I mentioned, we imbue the virtual agents with personality, and we integrate with internal systems that you have. So we will draw data and we will draw information from those internal systems dynamically in order to make sure that up-to-date information is provided as much as possible. And with this kind of solution, we are looking at really alleviating human agents with the repetitive stuff that really they don't want to be doing, and allowing them to focus on the more complex calls that they receive, and elements that at the moment maybe they don't have the time to service as they would like to do. So this is where we really feel that we can make a real difference in the gaming industry.
So John, ultimately what you've done is you've looked at the current situation, you've looked at potentially other industries, noticeably seeing that the technology is now out there to build such a solution that we can start automating the mundane and repetitive queries ultimately. And you've went through that discovery phase and put this into application. It sounds like a great idea. And of course, I think what's just as important as the discovery phase, which you probably did it, is paying attention to industry trends, making sure that technological advancements, player, customer behavior is all taken into account. And I think this is probably more leading into yourself, Dalia, being a support manager for online operations at a brand such as Stanleybet, who is well known and has been around for a very long time. What can you say that you've encountered, especially over the last few years, regarding player behavior and the impact it has on sort of customer service operations?
As we know, we are facing a unique situation. So the pandemic arrived, and when the retail business seems to slow down, the online started to rush more than the usual, because every customer from the retail discovered the online world, where we offer in a unique account also poker and casino, EPK and other products. So at that point, we faced a large number of tickets and requests on the online. So with the same resource, but we've been able in 1 week or 2 weeks to convert the retail resources into online. So we kind of keep the speed of answer as before, but still not the same as in the beginning. So yes, it was crowded, and we didn't manage enough the speed time of the answers, and because the customer registers himself and he wants to play now, not after 24 hours, for example. So yes, we aim to do that.
Okay, so again, coming back to sort of the player aspect or the customer aspect, it's looking at customer first, customer experience and customer journey. Now, of course, being land-based and online, land-based, you have that face-to-face communication with the people on the floor, but now that's gone, and as you said, you've had that influx into the digital aspect of the business, and yet you still have to deal with the same, or the increase in queries with the same staff that you have and the same operation. So obviously it must be very difficult. Now, again, though, it still have to keep that emphasis on the player, I'm assuming, and the overall experience. Now, we know ourselves, the introduction of mobile gaming many years ago and becoming the main channel highlights the fact that the way that players can and want to engage, and most operators now, and correct me if I'm wrong, will try and take the mobile first approach, and it also brings that availability that players can play anywhere at any time, and from an operations point of view, you have to sort of account for that, and ultimately puts you on call 24/7, 365 days a year. Your players and their ability to play whenever they want, Dalia, how difficult is that to predict? And therefore, your job is to plan particular resources to deal with such magnitude of queries now coming in through your digital channels.
In the normal situation, we do predict more or less the volume of the customers that subscribe or they want to play in different time ranges. For example, when we have bigger competitions on football, for example. So yes, we know how to schedule them and the resources in order to keep the quality and the speed of answer. We used our players. Because of course they want to play, as I said before, they want to play now and not to wait for us to reply or stay in queue and waiting for us to pick up the chat or the email at that point. So in a normal situation, yes, we are able to do it. But in this kind of situation, it's kind of impossible because you don't know when you will reopen, if it's a new lockdown and the people wants to be entertained. So they go on the website and play on a slot or make a bet. So it's kind of difficult lately to predict it.
And I would assume that, I don't know if you know off the top of your head right now, but you must have quite a high percentage of repetitive queries that you have to deal with, or the team has to deal with, would you say?
Absolutely. We do have those. And I think Claire, because our VA names is Claire, made us notice more than we were before. We knowing before what we had as a repetitive questions. We have a lot of topics that are repetitive or queries. We also been able to manage some of them, skipping the agent handling time of the query from the customer.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to say this from a personal perspective. Like, as a player myself, I definitely have experienced waiting for answers and needing to KYC done. It takes 24, 48 hours in some cases. But I understand this is a necessity. We need to make sure that we are protecting the industry. And there's so many rules and regulations in place that must be followed. And I appreciate this. John, when developing such a product such as the CX Virtual Agent in this dynamic industry, how did you approach dealing with such variations, regulations, and rules across different markets?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So once we established that the baseline was there and we could create virtual agents that could understand the customers, then it was all about creating natural conversations. Because we didn't want a kind of robotic response. We wanted to try and create something which actually supported the brand identity. You heard Dalia calling virtual agent Claire. We provide not just the name, but the personality behind it. And then that instructs us as to how the conversation should be built. And that's what we try and do. So once that was there, the product that underlines this artificial intelligence is basically all about creating the flexible conversations and the appropriate integrations that are necessary. And that could be, and it's very much bespoke depending on the business. There's an initial period of analysis that we do with our clients, and that would instruct us in the kind of conversations that are needed by the virtual agent. So far, the tool we have hasn't stopped us from creating any of the conversations that have been asked of us. Now, what was obviously, there are other elements to that have been highlighted, such as the security, and we obviously make sure we're GDPR compliant, etc. So all those different layers of the onion have had to be catered for. Responsible gaming is something that we take very seriously as well, and we identify specific dialogues that the artificial intelligence would identify during that flow. Another area which was obviously came out as extremely important is even our best virtual agents, they handle tops 85% of the conversations which is coming in, which is great. Obviously, it allows the customer service agents to focus on those more complex elements. But those 15%, or in the more normal cases, around 50%, 60% of calls that are either coming through, we have to make sure we manage that flow. And we allow the human agents to accept the call, and we provide them the appropriate tools needed in order to manage that call once it's handed over from the virtual agent. And that all comes as part of it as well. So this is this is us trying to provide the entire solution to the business and allow them to work comfortably with the tools that they're given. And that's vital, especially when it's such a quick area. You can't allow you can't have customers waiting too long. You have to process them as quickly as possible and make sure they get the efficient answers back. So that's all part of it. And that is an area that is always evolving. And as such, the product evolves and the conversations evolve. And that is very much what we do.
John, I think you mentioned something just there about the staff, and Dalia, you mentioned it a bit further back as well. We pay in the industry such focal attention on the player experience, and how the player feels when he engages with the brand, which of course is extremely important. But like you said, it's just as important focusing on the staff that have to deal with these constant, mundane, repetitive queries. Now, John, talking about AI and how it is able to alleviate all these queries from the CS team. Now, I'm going to show my age here a bit, but it sounds a bit like the original Terminator, where Arnold Schwarzenegger and the cyborgs are going to take over everything. Is this going to be the case?
No, it isn't. It's going to be nowhere near as violent as that for a start. But what our analysis has showed is basically businesses have these customer service agents, and they know a lot about the business. They have great knowledge of the flows and the information that there is. So this is not a matter of putting a virtual agent in place and removing the jobs of customer service agent. It's about allowing them to focus on the more complex issues and allowing them more time to do so. It's 2021. I mean, if you look at the type of calls we're talking about handling by the virtual agent, it's about time we did this. It is a big step forward. It's a step forward for any industry. But it's important we allow human beings to use their own superior cognitive abilities to solve problems for the customers that really need solving and that virtual agents cannot handle. And that is where we're going with this. That is basically one of the principles we try and put in place.
I think the truth of the matter is, and I think everybody on the call and it can relate to this, is we already have automation across other industries that are extremely successful. The question is, it's why is it not already doing this in the gaming industry to such a level that we know is already out there? And of course, John, you've already explained how the product is able to do these things. And Dalia, you're already giving us examples of how this is already happening. But say from your business perspective, Dalia, can I assume that what John is saying, that this is kind of what I'd say inspired Stanley a bit to delve further into the CX solution, and Claire, as you've called her?
Yes, we called her Claire, not the VA, or because in my point of view, Claire should not only stood up to the player, but integrate in the team. Actually, what I like to Claire when she was presented to us is because she can be a valuable member in the team by, for example, dealing with the higher number of the customer contacting us in the same time. For example, without me scheduling the resource, so dealing with the customer in the same way for them, not making them feel the waiting time so bad. So at this point, I liked her for this, but also for the repetitive queries. So for example, she knows how to identify the customer and picking up the questions for the customers. If she doesn't know how to answer, she will transfer the chat to the agent and the human agent, her colleague, her human colleague, okay, and they will deal with it in order to fix the issue or to give the information to the customer in the best way they can, but without losing the time of the beginning, dealing with the repetitive queries.
So ultimately, what you're able to do is provide a real-time service to your customers when they are at the most desired point where they actually are looking for a reply. And they actually want something answered there and then. Now, the world is in such a stage where they wanted the answer yesterday. And we're all the same. We're all very impatient. When we have a problem or a situation, we want it dealt with straight away. With such I suppose I see it as such complex cognitive movement in such a solution. I've been working in iGaming and IT for 10, 11 years, and I've seen my fair share of projects. Now, John, that's ranging from implementation, platform migrations, etc. Explain to me that it's been such a unique and powerful solution for operators. It must take a lot of time and resources to work with Dahlia and Stanleybet, no?
There you go, off mute. We had to do it at least once, no? So
the word of 2020 and 21.
So right now, to your question, that would be tantamount to admitting failure. To be honest with you, the large IT projects, things that take a huge amount of resource to get anything live, hopefully are a thing of the past. We've all been burnt by them at one point or another. What we look to try and do, we try to approach it in a very agile way. There is an initial amount of frequently asked questions that can be taken live really rather quickly. We can hold a couple of workshops, we identify the conversations that we do, and we build the virtual agent. And the heavy lifting is done by us. So we will be working with the clients, obviously, to bring that live. And the sooner we can get the virtual agent live, the better, because that starts to add value. And to be 100% honest, this is when you get instructed properly by your clients, because they will start guiding you what they want the virtual agent to do, how they want to approach it. So there's that development as well. Obviously, we use the database of knowledge that we already have to get a good running start. But then you want to try and get that interaction with your client started as soon as possible. Now, how quickly really depends on what the setup is and when the organization is ready to make that change. It can be as quick as 10 to 15 days. It can take a little bit longer depending on what we go live with initially. But really, we target that kind of quick incremental launch process. And we continue to build on what we have. That is the best way of doing it. We basically, as far as the actual questions we answer, as far as the capabilities of the virtual agent, there are 3 levels. The first one, as I mentioned, is FAQs. And we try to go live with that as soon as possible. We just build the conversations out, and we allow the virtual agent to handle what it can and then pass on what it cannot. We then start using environmental data, what we call contextual data, which could be pulled from a website, from a login, from a profile, and we actually pull that information into the conversation and try and support the virtual agent further. Finally, we integrate with internal systems, and there we pull out transaction information, information on payments, and that again, it's another layer, it's another 10-15% of the calls being handled by the virtual agent and being developed. Apart from all this, we've got internal teams which actually focus on the conversations being had, always making them smoother, always developing them. We have an NLP specialist team who would focus on those areas and making sure that what we call the training model is up to date, is as relevant as possible, and is always developing. And this is how, if you like, we grow from initial starting point and taking over 15, 20, 25% of the calls to our target of 50% plus within a matter of weeks, or in some cases months. But that is always our objective, and that's how we grow.
Right, John, I don't mean to be disrespectful, don't take this the wrong way, but you're obviously the techie guy, and you've done this 100 times. Dahlia, from the operator side, how did you actually find the engagement in the process of deploying Claire to the business?
You are right, John is a techie guy, okay, because he tackled the part of Claire like in the technical view. But as I said before, my focus point is to integrate Claire in the team, so she doesn't know the difference between them. Actually, it is until now, but we are constantly working on it. And what we asked John, his team, technical team, is to add some features in order to help also the human agents to work with Claire together in the best way, and also with the team that are building flows and everything. We are monitoring Claire. Also, her colleagues are monitoring her, and they are letting Gibo know that when some conversation didn't go well, has to be changed or has to be reviewed, so it didn't recognize the right flow. So yes, we are constantly working with them. Every week we have 2 or 3 meetings to address all of these things. But until now, it's going very well, and we are working very good.
Okay. Now, correct. Now, the Stanleybit brand it is live in Italy, so I'm assuming these conversations would be in Italian. Yes.
Sure. Claire is a French girl.
Okay.
She's a French girl, but she offers assistance in Italian. She lives in Romania, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yes, that makes complete sense. All right, John. Well, carrying on from that level of integration, like from Stanleybit's point of view, from a technical side, now what do you have to do to go through sort of adding the personality and name? What does that really take? Like, what does that mean from a technical perspective?
It's a couple of things. It's gathering, it's understanding first. We have to listen. We have to sit down with the client and understand exactly what the kind of brand identity is and what kind of responses do you want the virtual agent to provide. So it's a lot of listening at an initial workshop to actually define what kind of personality we're looking for. Then once we have those various status, so if, for example, is it more formal? Is it a little bit more, is it informal? Is it corporate speak? Is it more relaxed in how the communication happens? So all these various elements are then put into an output from a workshop, and then that instructs the conversations that we build. This is all about creating the appropriate natural conversations, because that is the touch point. It is the conversation itself. So as soon as we nail that, as soon as we have a really good understanding of the kind of virtual agent that we want to be surfacing, then we can build the conversations appropriately. Now, again, I think the key point here is, do we get it 100% right first time? I really wish I could say yes, but all technologists know that is not the case, and business people, unfortunately, as well. So the basic point is we start at a point, and the monitoring is so important, and the understanding is so important, and the review process that we set up with the business is so important. And we see the impact of that process immediately. So we could very quickly, I'm going to try and answer one of the questions I'm seeing coming up at the same time. We can develop an ROI within a few months. It makes sense within a few months. Why? Because you're answering that many calls. You're taking it off human hands, you're pushing it to the virtual agent, and the virtual agent is then changing the dynamic in that way. So that is the kind of process that we have to go through.
And Dalia, I'm going to assume the way you're talking regarding how Claire is integrated into the team, she's a member of the staff, she's with you. You mustn't be having this at just a simple FAQ level, I'm assuming. I'm assuming that you're going to take this to sort of a more deeper level of integration to tackle as many queries as your players will have.
Absolutely. We are working to integrate some APIs with John's team in order to pick up more queries and more difficult queries, let's say, in order to check some transactions, for example, or login issues. And with the APIs integration, we also integrate the 2 phases authentication in order to assure the GDPR and privacy policy and everything that we have to, and anti-money laundering also. Because as you said before, it's very important for us to comply to all of these policies. So we are making it as secure as we can.
Okay, great. So I think ultimately, let's move forward a little bit from how the setup is. I think what's quite important and what would be good to know is, I assume by the conversation that Claire is live and she'll have some performance statistics, or you have some idea of how she's been promoted to the players. Let's take it from John's perspective first. You must see the numbers or the performance of the VA. What have you been seeing since, I assume, Claire's live? Give us since when?
Right, okay. So I have no doubt that Dalia will correct me very quickly if I get any of these wrong. So Claire has been live for a few weeks now, I think a couple of months or so. We are resolving about 35% of the chats. which are coming in, and that is going up. We have a recognition rate, which means that the customer makes a statement, makes a request. We understand it and provide an appropriate response of about 97%. So that is extremely high, and I think that is actually, I wish I could take all the credit, but that's actually a really good team effort in order to get it to that point. So that's one of the best performing virtual agents, and it's handling about 1,000 conversations a week right now. So that is where we are at the moment, and we're seeing those kind of adoption figures going up. So I think that is about right. Am I right, Dania?
Yes, you are right. We are gathering more and more information in order for Claire to understand all the queries for the customer and the way they are asking for it. Because as you said, they are unique. Every player is unique, and they have different needs and they put it in a different way.
Cool. John, let me throw this at you. You've got this conversational element built in for the solution, excuse me. And I know from experience that you said you're not a chatbot, and we know there's chatbots out there. They do the job that they're designed to do. But what's different from them to sort of the CX virtual agent AI solution? Does it just handle the query, or does it go end to end? Does it solve the whole problem? What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the chatbot generation, if you like, was stifled, and there were a lot of failed projects by the simple fact that the chatbot could not understand enough of what is being asked of it. So when I mentioned earlier, just before, that Claire is understanding 97% of the traffic coming through to her, I mean, at a chatbot, that would be absolutely impossible. It would be more around 40%. And no one wants to hold a conversation with anyone who can't understand what they're saying. So that understanding and the breakdown of that sentence into its parts and understanding a nuance of what the question is makes a big difference. So once the virtual agent is able to break down the question, provide the appropriate information back on a regular basis in an accurate manner, then that changed the dynamic completely. That meant you can close calls end to end, which is where the value comes. So there is value in accepting the call, understanding it has to go to a human agent, and routing it appropriately. There is value in that, but the real value is that a human agent doesn't have to get involved. And that is why we mention those figures, and we're constantly monitoring and trying to grow them as quickly as possible. So that is the big dynamic that we're working on now.
John, that's an incredible statement, and coupled with the statistics you've provided, and just correct me if I'm wrong, both of you. I'll take it on the chin. So it took a few weeks to be delivered, and quite quickly. Claire is only a few months old. She's handling over 1,000 conversations a week, and she's understanding 96-97% of what the players are asking. Have I got that correct?
Yeah. All right. And add to the fact that it's also handling end-to-end 35% of those 1,000 conversations that don't have to go through a human, that previously had to.
No,
so that is the delta.
That's fantastic stats, and of course, apart from the well-being of the staff, the stress levels of management such as yourself, God knows what great financial impact that'll have to the bottom line in the business as well. Look, this is definitely been something that has opened my eye a bit. I assume that Claire she'll still be learning, and as you said, increasing her effectiveness. And Dalia has already advised that you're going to be adding more and more dialogues as the sort of weeks and months come over. So, look, best of luck and what's going to happen. I hope Claire becomes, I don't know, John, I'm assuming your goal Claire would be, or even Dalia, to be indistinguishable from a human. Would that be the ultimate goal?
That's what we always try and do.
At the beginning, I was afraid that the customer will say, I've been frauded, and she will say, great, I'm happy for you. Okay. So and afterwards I was happy with Claire because she didn't answer that. So
Well, that's definitely a positive. At least it's taking the correct approach.
Steve, to interrupt, so you mentioned something very important there, and that is the fact that new dialogues are created as we go. A key element of this is the understanding that the virtual agent cannot stand still. The business will evolve, and the virtual agent has to do that as well. So
Absolutely.
we're constantly working on it. So we have to keep listening, understanding, reviewing what's being asked, working with, where we really enjoy it is when we work with the business and they identify something that's coming in a month or in 6 weeks' time, so that we put those dialogues in advance of the question coming in. That's the best.
So you're proactive about the approach as well.
So when the questions come in, it's already in a position to answer them. And we take great satisfaction from that, and that is how we try to work.
Yes.
Well, I think it's safe to say I'd assume the audience would like some of their questions answered, and I will direct these accordingly. So I'm going to start with the first one. I believe, John, if I read this will be more in your area of expertise.
Cool.
Is the virtual agent set up for gaming companies only? A lot of the focus on the webinar seems to be specific around the gaming sector and their clients' players. That I'll appreciate from the conversation. Of course, Dalia's here, so we're trying to keep it along the lines of her experiences, of course. John, we have virtual agents working in many industries. Yeah. Where is there a throughput of calls and it can work specifically?
It is really all about that. It is in the end a customer service solution, and it is focused on that issue, which is seen across industries. So we have it working in banking, we have it working in insurance companies. So there are various uses of it. Where there are a number of calls coming in, and the organization is finding it difficult or would value having it on a 24/7 basis, having that kind of ability to respond in an informed and intelligent manner, then it can be used. And then the ROI is all about the throughput. So we really focus on trying to answer as many questions as possible. So the more that are coming through, the more that it makes sense.
Okay, makes sense. There's a very similar question, John, and I'm going to tag it onto the back of it in case you've got a little bit of an elaboration to it. So how can this technology be used specifically in the manufacturing industry? I guess feasibility of such a system depends on the traffic and contact. Would you elaborate on that a bit further than what you've already just mentioned?
Sure. I think I would differentiate between. I think the key point is the virtual agent is a very good contact point, customer touch point, for want of a better way of putting it. When the client contacting wants to be informed, when there is that layer that we can provide. So when they're asking questions and they want to be informed in the form of a natural conversation, then it is a very good contact point. Where it is not so good if it's a specialist system and they do the same thing over. If one individual has the same question over and over again, one individual, then there may be other ways of surfacing that information. But if many people want to ask questions of information from an organization, then it is a very good way of surfacing that information quickly and effectively.
Okay, great. Dalia, this is probably more directed to you. How long did it take for your CF staff to understand the virtual agent and how to work with her, how to work with the system itself?
If we are talking about the back office that the agents are dealing with it, a day, they get used to it and they started to take up to John some requirements for them to make it easy, the life easier. So, and this week we will have them, right, John?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
your live webinar.
But yes.
Okay, so it didn't take long for the agents to get used to it, to jump from the beginning of the old chat to the new chat. The customers, again, as I said before, I was afraid they won't like it because, okay, it's another bot, as they said. I was afraid they won't start the conversation, but I was wrong. They really enjoyed it. They enjoyed it because also we had some queries that skipping the agent handling time. So they were sending directly the request to the relevant department by themselves. So they really enjoyed it. I think more or less a month they get used to it. And we are continuously working, as I said, 2 or 3 times a week, talking with the team who's building the flows, and we are bringing them the issues we've seen or maybe the queries that we want to add. So we are constantly still working on it.
Okay. John, I think these 2 questions go hand in hand. So first of all, how does the solution handle different languages? Would we need to provide various translations, or would the solution take care of the translations? Couple that along with another question, and is the virtual agent bound by jurisdiction, or can it work anywhere?
Right. Regarding jurisdiction, we haven't run into a problem whereby the virtual agent couldn't work in a specific jurisdiction. What we have done is obviously put certain intelligence into virtual agents so they can answer the question differently depending on where the client is coming from. So, for example, if games are available from one country and from another, it would reply differently. So, I think that, but not that it wouldn't be able to. Work. No, none I'm aware of. Regarding languages, there are a couple of theories about this. So we actually provide a virtual agent per language. Why? Because we want as much as possible the detail and the nuance of that language to be understood per virtual agent and constantly updated. Regarding the translation itself, at the moment, the way that most clients want to work with, well, all clients have wanted to work with us, they want to predetermine the translations that are going out. And we make sure that those are correct from a cultural point of view, from an understanding point of view. And that can either be worked, we can bring resources actually in to do that, or the understanding is already within the organization and we work on the translations together.
So ultimately that comes back into the conversation where you were talking about brand messaging and how you want it to be perceived to the players, and it's through all these workshops that would be done.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So fantastic. I think we've got time for a few more questions, and I think that'll be us time up. From Gordon, how long does the learning phase take, and what is the critical data set needed for an effective AI, John?
It's a good question. So we have a database which obviously is industry specific, and that helps us with to make sure that the virtual agent hits the floor running. We target a number of specific questions with a number of what we call utterances, which are basically just statements that we would expect the clients to begin requesting. And then the artificial intelligence will multiply the effectiveness of that. We can, like I mentioned, we can go live with a virtual agent that is effective within 10 days. Maybe the understanding rate won't be 95%, it'll be a little lower, but we build on that so quickly that it's absolutely worth going live with it. So long answer, a bit shorter. Within a couple of weeks, it is extremely effective, and then we build from there.
Okay, great. Second last question, can a virtual agent, apart from handling all the calls and queries, also be theoretically used in a shopping centre as an information desk where clients can press buttons and ask questions or directions?
Yes, that's just the presentation layer. Absolutely, it is possible.
Okay, great. I think I've answered all the questions. Let me say, of course, thank you to my guests, John and Dalia. We would like to say that, of course, as part of the webinar, that they are offering a free and personalized consultation for a CX virtual agent solution. I believe you'll see the pop-up on your screen. And of course, this is to find out the impact, or the positive impact that this would be able to have on your business and operations. I think overall, I would like to say thank you to the audience and your participation. It's been fantastic to host this webinar and speaking to John and everybody taking part. Dalia, you've been fantastic as well. Thank you for sharing your direct experience. You guys are on the floor. You're dealing with the players day in and day out. I really appreciate your time as well. To everybody, have a fantastic week and take care, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.